Hello, this is Emeka Ugwuonye. Welcome to our discussion session today, 24th of February 2022. The topic of today's discussion is the case of Abba Kyari. Abba Kyari, the Deputy Police Commissioner, who is embroiled in a series of scandals, who is currently in detention at the facility of the NDLEA, which recently got a court order permitting them to detain Abba Kyari. Last year, in August last year, the case of Abba Kyari and his involvement in the hush puppy case flooded the media. And many people were shocked that a highly celebrated police officer, indeed the best in Nigeria, could be implicated in a crime of that magnitude. But above all, the United States Justice Department applied for the extradition of Abba Kyari to stand trial in the United States. That was actually what made that case very important. Otherwise, the stories of Nigerian policemen taking bribe and imprisoning people, innocent people, are so common that most Nigerians would not bat an eyelid because of that. But the involvement of the United States Justice Department in the Abba Kyari case made it all important. When that case exploded upon us last year in August, I had the opportunity of making a broadcast. In my broadcast, I warned that the implication of Abba Kyari in that case was going to open a floodgate and lead the world and lead Nigerians to understand the truth about the man, Abba Kyari, and the truth about the police command or police unit that he commanded. But also, more importantly, the truth about Nigerian police. In view of the fact that Abba Kyari was celebrated as the best, and it took years before he emerged and built that dubious credential, it tells you something about Nigerian police force. Abba Kyari is not alone. Don't make the mistake of thinking that one single police officer could have risen as high as he rose while being a criminal, as we are beginning to say. Do not believe it could happen so simply. There was a system that produced Abba Kyari. There was a system that made it possible for him to triumph and become so popular and so celebrated. That system is a decadent system. That system is a corrupt system. That system has been permissive and indulgent towards those atrocities and crimes that Abba Kyari has become associated with. That is the puzzle. That is something that all of us ought to be looking into. But apparently, not much attention is paid to it. How did Abba Kyari rise so fast to the rank of a deputy police commissioner or deputy commissioner of police? How did he get that far? It is because he was aided, because he was supported by his superiors, by his colleagues, by his system, by the system. It is that system that we're supposed to focus on, because if there is one Abba Kyari, there'll be very many. If we catch one Abba Kyari, there'll be very many Abba Kyaris in the Nigerian police force that have not been caught. The dramatic expose emerging from this drug scandal is something shocking. 5 police officers were indicted. 5 police officers were to be arrested. One of them is on the run now. The one on the run, of the rank of an assistant superintendent of police, Ochori is his real name, but he had an alias. His alias is Too Much Money, because of the amount of money he had. How did Ochori acquire so much wealth? Because of their involvement in criminal activities, organized crime, criminal enterprise. We are not talking of an isolated incident of a police officer taking bribe or beating someone up. No. Abba Kyari's gang has been so well entrenched that they could actually use their position to obstruct investigations and encourage crime across the board. Take the case of Hush Puppy. Hush Puppy was involved in fraud. That is something within the domain of EFCC. Another law enforcement agency, Abba Kyari, in his own unit of IRT, was able to intervene in Hush Puppy and protect Hush Puppy, making it impossible for EFCC to have intervened. Otherwise, in a normal system, Abba Kyari would have referred Hush Puppy to EFCC immediately, and EFCC would have taken steps to stop that criminal conduct. But Abba Kyari aided it. He was part of their gang. He was a facilitator. He made it possible. Across agency, he moved from his own agency, interfered with the work of another law enforcement agency, and crime occurred as a result of that. And the same thing occurred now in the case involving drugs. The NDLEA is the agency in charge of enforcing our drug laws. Again, Abba Kyari intervened and aided a drug cartel, according to the allegations we are seeing, using his powerful position. And the irony of it was that Abba Kyari was actually supposed to be on suspension at the time he was able to intervene and perpetrate a crime against NDLEA and against Nigeria. So that just tells you how permissive the system was for him. That tells you the sort of support Abba Kyari had within the police hierarchy. If he did not have such support, how come that he was from suspension still running IRT, still controlling the officers of IRT? That tells you that even while on suspension, he has capacity to interfere with investigation, his own investigation. He had capacity to kill people. He has capacity to suppress witnesses. His enemies are in trouble. Those who criticize Abba Kyari, such as me, we're all in trouble because Abba Kyari is commanding police squad, killer squad. He can do anything he likes. Why? Because Nigerian police support him. Nigerian police force found Abba Kyari an influential, exceptional officer they have to support. Nigerians, and I hope the president himself is aware of this, you got to step in and understand that your police force is hugely compromised, deeply and terribly compromised. There was even an effort to blackmail the NDLEA people over Abba Kyari. So we got to wake up. We got to understand that Nigerian police needs fundamental reform. The irony of it is that no country can exist without police force. No society can function without police force. We depend on the police for almost so much, and we need the police. However, we cannot accept the police we have. What we have as the police force is really not what we want. It's really not what we need. So, Nigerian police must commence rapid, comprehensive reform. We don't need a riot to start reform. We don't need what happened in 2020 to have a reform of the Nigerian police. Indeed, this Abba Kyari incident is a wake-up call for Nigeria. We got to sit up and get it done. I personally have suffered unduly. For criticizing the police, I have been persecuted in every way imaginable. The police did to me things inconceivable. I was framed up for murder and armed robbery by a police just to silence me. And that was, in the case of Abba Kyari, he only arrested a man and detained him for a month to facilitate crime. In my case, it is worse. I was charged with armed robbery. I was charged with murder. So, what Abba Kyari did is being done by the police. It is their rule book. Abba Kyari acted from the rule book of the police force, the Nigerian police. So we need to sit up. I know that there are some honest police officers, and I simply sympathize with them. There are some honest people up there. And if you are listening to this, I want you to know that your reputation is on the line. You have a duty to help clean up the police. You have a duty to help sanitize the police. If you don't sanitize the police, all of you are going to go down with a blemish. The good officers in Nigerian police must understand that their own reputation, their own name is at stake. It is their silence that encourage the rogue officers to do what they do. So it's a call for all. It's a call for the good police officers to act. It's a call for the police top commanders to act. Look at the dilemma the IG must face now. Yeah, exactly. How would the IG feel? This is your police force. This is possible. The fact that this is possible. within a police force you command must have been an embarrassment. Even though it's not the fault of this IG, it took years to have the police force we have today. It took years in the making. This IG did not create Abba Kyari. This IG probably had no influence in the rise of Abba Kyari. But he must accept the responsibility of the Abba Kyari phenomenon. I call it a phenomenon because of its corrosive, in fact, wide effect on the police force. That outside Nigeria, our police will have no respect. Indeed, to say you're a police officer in Nigeria is to almost confess to being a criminal. And that is unfair to the good officers. So the Abba Kyari incident must be taken in proper perspective. It's not the crime of one officer. It's the crime of a system. It's the crime of an institution. It requires an institution-wide review, institution-wide investigation, and reform. How many other police officers are like Abba Kyari? How many acted with him? We need today, at this moment, to begin to identify all those cases where Abba Kyari claimed to have achieved success. If you investigate them, you will be shocked. Also, the lawyers are watching. If you've ever had a case, if you had ever defended a client in a case in which Abba Kyari was involved in investigation, arrest, or anything, you can seek to reopen those cases today. Because Abba Kyari cannot be trusted. Because these scandals emerging are so systemic that if he could do them in one incident, he could have done it across the board. So, it's unfortunate. In August last year, I warned the country that what we were seeing in Abba Kyari was just the opening of a big can of worms. And that seems to be the case. That seems to be the case, and many more will emerge. I wouldn't be surprised if NDLEA comes out with far many more cases against Abba Kyari. I won't be surprised if victims of Abba Kyari now find their courage to come out and speak. Personally, I have not encountered Abba Kyari, but as a lawyer, I received reports. I monitored cases. I observed cases in which this man's atrocious activities were clearly pointed out. It's important for this comprehensive investigation to start now. In fact, if I were the police, if I were the IG, I would initiate my own investigation and be the one to discover the atrocities of these officers. If the IG can himself discover these atrocities, it will help the Nigerian police redeem itself. But for us to have a situation where it was the United States FBI that discovered the atrocity, not Nigerian police, and then it was the NDLEA that discovered this new scandal, not the Nigerian police, there's a problem because it paints Nigerian police as involved in cover-up. It means that the police notice these things but look the other way. It means that the solution, if we have to get the police right, the solution is going to come from the activities of people outside the police force. No, it should be internal. The police hierarchy should start comprehensive investigation so that they will redeem their names and regain credibility. So there will be no need for protest in order to reform the police. It's a very interesting case. We are watching it. I was not surprised that the judge denied Abba Kyari's application for release. I believe that these judges are also responding to the shock created by the Abba Kyari scandals. They were terrified. Everybody is shocked. If it is possible that this could happen, it's a wake-up call. It's a moment for everybody to tighten up and stop participating in this nasty cover-up and indulgence or protection for a decadent team of police officers. So I wasn't surprised when the judge said no, and I'm sure the other judges will say no. I doubt that insofar as the NDLEA is expanding on this theory of involvement in cartel and drug peddling, releasing Abba Kyari will not be perceived in the interest of Nigeria, because if released, he will use his power to do things. We saw what happened while he was on suspension. So he has to be isolated completely and not allowed to communicate with anybody in the absence of law enforcement. In fact, I am someone that always believed that a counsel should have private communication, confidential communication with his client in detention. But as far as the case of Abba Kyari is concerned, there could be an exception. Abba Kyari should not be allowed to have private communication with anybody, including his lawyers. Why? Because if you allow that, he could use that to perpetrate crime, to suppress evidence, or obstruct investigation, or tamper with witnesses. So it is very important that he's isolated, and it's very important that this investigation is expanded to any case, all cases in which IRT was involved in the arrest of drug peddlers. Because essentially what happened, if you look at it critically, is that drug peddlers are using Abba Kyari to have their way. Abba Kyari and his team were peddling drugs without taking any risk. They just stay in Nigeria, and drug peddlers bring in drug in Nigeria. Abba Kyari seizes the drug after they have stepped out of the airport and then sells the drug. What a cowardly way to make illicit money. So he didn't even take the risk of crossing any airport. All those who courier the drugs took risks. They passed through airports in Brazil, they passed through airports in Ethiopia, they passed through airports in Nigeria. They were taking risks each time they crossed airport. Abba Kyari took no risk at all. His men waited in the parking lot of an airport. So when somebody comes in carrying the drug, they intercept, grab him, take his drug, and sell the drug, and then arrange to have the person prosecuted and put away in prison. What a terrible thing to do. It's a very serious matter. It is the height of crime. Indeed, given these allegations, Abba Kyari can be called the worst police officer in Nigerian history. Worse than the police officer whom in the old Bendel helped Lawrence Anini in the 80s, in the 1980s, I mean. So this is meaning that Abba Kyari is the worst in Nigerian history. It is an intolerable story, and any effort to cover him will be very deadly and very unfortunate. There'll be more on this. We are watching this case very, very closely because we believe this is going to lead to defining moments in the history of Nigerian police. Thank you very much for listening.